Hello and welcome to our Belmont Stakes Day Pick Six show. Producer AJ looking clearly. I don't give the man enough credit because he's popping himself right up there on the screen with us, but he deserves it because he does such a fantastic job. And among the great jobs that producer AJ does was picking the song that he could find, the royalty-free song that he could find that was closest to Smoke on the Water, most appropriate for today in the New York City area where we are being smoked out. Though I have to say, it looks like the wind may have just turned, and I'm hoping it can all blow out to sea, and we're going to be okay for all 3 days of this Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, which is meant to kick off tomorrow, Thursday. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, coming to you from the Brooklyn Salon up here upstairs in the house in Brooklyn. Very excited to be talking to y'all about this all grade 1 Belmont Day Pick Six, and very pleased to be joined by two of the folks that I most want to speak with when it comes to anything related to New York racing. And we'll start off by introducing the legend, the man who's been such an incredible help to me and so many horse players through his handicapping advice, through his horse player advocacy. He is a true Hall of Famer. He is Steven Crist. Steven, how are you doing tonight?
Just great, Pete. Welcome. The sky has been orange most of the day here on Long Island. I'm about 5 miles from Belmont, but it's now gray. I've never been so excited by a gray sky. I wouldn't bet that we're definitely racing tomorrow, but we should be fine Friday and Saturday.
Fingers crossed. I know some tracks have, in my view, jumped the gun, canceling tomorrow already. That does put a little bit of extra pressure on Belmont. We'll see. I hope so. It's a good stakes-laden card tomorrow. JK and I will be back, whether or not they run, from 4 to 5 right here on YouTube. It's meant to be our first horse player happy hour of the year. It may turn into more of a Friday type of a preview since we're going to cover Saturday pretty thoroughly tonight. I already let the cat out of the bag for folks who are listening to who the other guest is here. He's back from Italy. He is a married man. He is Jonathon Kinchen. What's up, JK?
I'm back. Yeah, it's a hard place to leave. I got to be honest with you. If it wasn't
for a lot of different reasons, it's a hard place to leave.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the Belmont Stakes, I probably would have stuck around a little bit longer. But we had a blast. We did a little Italy. We did a little London. We saw Beyonce, and then we made it back. So everyone else in the family is like jet lagged and sick. But for someone who flies 17 times a month, I feel like $1 million.
You have a special gift that I've noticed, especially for somebody with a relatively small child. I mean, I've known you now for 8 years, and I'm not sure I've ever seen you sick.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wash my hands a lot. I'm not like an over the top germaphobe, but I wash my hands a lot. But I also think that I think this kills a lot of it too.
I'm not sure the doctors watching are approving of this particular medication message.
I'm fortunate. So,
guys, we have so much great racing over the course of the next 3 days, but certainly I think the highlight is this all grade 1 pick 6 on Saturday. And that's where we're going to begin with the grade 1 Ogden Phipps for fillies and mares, 4-year-old and up, going 1 1/16 on the dirt. Steve, I'd love to bring you in first for your opinion of this one. Are we looking at a match between Secret Oath and Clairiere, or is it more complicated than that?
Well, I think it's more complicated than that because I think Search Results has a big chance in this race. I thought she ran great off the layoff, to be beaten less than a length by Played Hard and Secret Oath. Chad Brown's horses tend to improve sharply second time back off the layoff. So to me, she's right there with Secret Oath and Clairiere. Sort of in my ABC way of looking at things, Search Results and Clairiere are my A's. Secret Oath is a B. Can't see anyone else winning the race.
How about you, Jonathon? Is it those three for you? I mean, we have our old friend Pass the Champagne in here. She ran great last time in the Ruffian. Can she maybe try to serve it up to some of these more famous names?
I mean, she ran fast last time, and a horse to come back and won out of that race as well. So that fast figure, I think you can kind of trust a little bit. But the thing with Past the Champagne is I think they kind of found out what her style is. And I think her style is kind of to try to make one run. If you make the lead too early with her, it's problematic. And I think the pace could be a problem for her. But I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I tell people all the time, I've seen significantly worse 8-1 shots win races like this. I think she is a better horse than she's kind of shown in her last, 3 or 4 starts prior to her last start. I wouldn't be shocked at all, but she's got some monsters in here to deal with. I agree with Steve on search results, and she looks like she could be loose in here. We'll have to see what the 3-horse, the Mid-Atlantic shipper that showed up that's 50-1, what they try to do from a pace situation. Let's not forget, search results likes Belmont Park. Not only does she like Belmont, she's won here twice. The time that she got third here arguably was one of her best races. And that was a race in which she got hooked with Latruska. And after that race, talking to Chad Brown, he was furious at IRAD. The instructions were, do not hook Latruska until the 8th pole. Do not hook Latruska until the 8th pole. And IRAD thought he said the 3/8 pole because he hooked him at the 3/8 pole. He didn't really think that, but and she ran outstanding. Like. And she just got ran down by 2 amazing horses in Clairiere and Malathot. I think search results moves up on this racetrack. The configuration, I think, kind of fits what she likes. I think that if they can find the front end with Flavian, I think she could be tough to beat. I don't need Secret Oath. If Clairiere is in the race, I don't need Secret Oath. I'll say that for the rest of this year and probably next year if she shows back up. Clairiere will probably go be a mom. But I don't need them. I don't need both of them. I think Clairiere is a superior horse, and I think if a situation works out and sets up for Clairiere or for Secret Oath, it'll set up for Clairiere as well. I'm tempted to just use Clairiere and search results in this spot, maybe with the saver on Past the Champagne, because if she gets her picture taken, it's surely going to be with me involved. I'm going to use Clairiere as kind of my kind of pressed up A little bit, just because I think she's a better horse. I think search results deserves to be an A as well. And then I'll use Past the Champagne as a B. If Dwayne Lucas and Secret Oath win, then I'll be playing the pick 5 back.
There you go. And it'd be a great story and certainly be clapping her to the winner's circle, but I see it and we'll probably bet it similarly, JK. I think Clairiere is the pressed up A. Search results feels like needs to be used as a backup in this spot. I'm going to look to get out 6-2 and I'll be thrilled to be wrong if Past the Champagne wins and clapping our friends in for that result as well. Let's pivot to the Grade 1 Woody Stevens. I think one of the most interesting races in this sequence. We've got these 3-year-olds going 7 furlongs on the dirt, and JK, we'll keep it with you.
Yeah, this one's tough. Just because all of my being, every little inch of my body wants to do what most people think I'm going to say I want to do, which is single Arabian Lion, cutting back, a horse that probably didn't want to be going 2 turns in the first place, but has kind of gutted out a couple of really good performances despite that. So now what's going to happen when the horse cuts back? It just makes me itch thinking about Bayern, right? Like this is like a Bayern all over again. Bayern finally getting that chance to go a little bit shorter in what he did, frosted in the Met Mile, and what he did. Just when they get the chance to, when they were doing well, doing what they shouldn't be doing, and they get to do what they should be doing, it's always, an opportunity for an unbelievable performance. I'm going to key Arabian Lion, and I'm going to play with Arabian Lion a little bit extra, kind of that pressed A situation we talk about, Pete, where you come back and maybe open up another ticket maker and just use Arabian Lion, but I don't want a single Arabian Lion as an A, because I think General Jim's kind of found his home around 1 turn. Fort Bragg, I thought, ran extremely well last time after breaking a little bit slow back into Baffert's care. And then Drew's Gold, connections that don't match up, quote unquote, with the Todd Pletchers and the Chads and the Brad Coxes and the Bob Bafferts, but this Drew's Gold looks like a real serious horse. And I love outside draws and 1-turn races where you can kind of dictate, see what's going on, see what everyone else is doing to the inside of you. I got to have Drew's Gold on there as well. So I'm going to use those 3 horses: Arabian Lion, General Jim, or excuse me, 4 horses, Fort Bragg and Drew's Gold. But I will also use the B horse, the inside horse, New York Thunder, who's been running on synthetic and on turf, but has extremely fast numbers. It's a Nyquist, drawn towards the inside, undefeated with tactical speed. I won't let this horse knock me out. Not going to use him equally to the other ones. Still has some things to prove, but I will use the horse as a B horse.
I get that approach in here for sure. I was going to play it with the Pat Day Mile as the key form line. I really like the setup that General Jim is going to get. I think Fort Bragg is very, very interesting, especially with a more with some patient handling, with the idea that Arabian Lion would go forward of the Baffert pair. I think Fort Bragg could get a perfect trip. And I don't hate Gilmore either, the horse that ran 3rd in there and was making up some nice ground late. I might try to get away messing around with those 3, the 4, 12, and 8, with the idea that Arabian Lion, I hear what you're saying, Jonathan, but I wonder if running farther, now facing the sprint speed, looking at a pace map and how far the horse is projected to be just on the raw pace figures, I don't know. He might be a favorite to oppose as far as I'm concerned. Steve, break the tie on Arabian Lion. Are you with or against?
I'm very much with. This is a horse who ran a better race than the Preakness. I mean, he ran a faster race than the Preakness on the same card. I love the turn back with him. I think there's a lot of iffy speed in the race. And if the race comes apart, I just think he's better than these horses. Having said that, I'm terrified of Drew's Gold. I'll be using him because his last race was freaky good. And, as you said, Jim Chapman is not in the top tier of trainers, but he's seen good horses before. He trained Caller One, and he said Drew's Gold is better than Caller One, which, when he said it before the last race, I kind of rolled my eyes. He really ran a great race. And like you, I like, the idea of a big speed horse with an outside draw. I'm not going to be shocked at all if he just, runs this field off his feet. Those 2 are my keys. I'm a little against the Pat Day Mile because I think the figure, just like I think the figure for the Kentucky Derby on the same card, is way too high. Right. I don't think, so many horses ran 10-point tops out of nowhere. And you could argue that both of those races, the fig is a little high. And to my mind, Fort Bragg ran a lot better than General Jim. So he's the one I want out of that race. And if General Jim's really going to be a 3-1 favorite, I'm willing to let him beat me.
Excellent. I love that kind of discourse. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out on Saturday in the Woody Stevens. The Grade 1 action continues with the Jaipur up next. 6 furlongs on the turf. We've got a big full field. And I suppose the biggest story heading into this race is Caravel, interestingly, was originally meant to be pointed to Royal Ascot off the last race. They've quite sensibly, I think, decided to go for the domestic Grade 1 in the Jaipur. My question about her, Steve, is can we trust her to reproduce this form that she's been showing at 5.5, going a truly run 6 furlongs at Belmont? Where are you with Caravel, Steve?
Well, I guess I'm allowed to talk about this race. I'm not allowed to bet on it other than my own horse. We're running Thin White Duke in this race. He's 30-1 on the line. Probably isn't far off. So that takes me out of betting the pick 6, the late pick 5, everything else. Probably save me some money. That's okay. I'm looking to beat Caravel. I mean, selfishly, I hope there's a monstrous pace in this race and that 7 of them go for the lead and they're all running sideways. And at the 16th ball, here comes Thin White Duke. But I do think that Caravel has really, I still have no idea how she ended up alone on the lead in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. It was just amazing to me. Actually, that's happened in a couple of the turf sprints this year as well. And that horse at Pimlico, who won on Preakness Day, Nobles, we'll call him for the sake of propriety.
There is a child. There's at least one child listening, so I appreciate that, Steve.
Oh, good. It's about the children. I do think that one of these turf sprints has got to come up at a lot of speed, and I'm hoping not just for our sake, but it'll make it a far more interesting wagering race if Caravel does not get loose. Having said that, there's one really good closer in this race, and that's Casa Creed. I mean, I have really gotten to admire this horse over the last couple of years. He's good anywhere from 6 furlongs to a mile. He's probably got the best closing kick of anyone in the field, and he's the one I'd be afraid of.
Very, very interesting. Jonathan, how about you? I know you're a big fan of Caravel in general. Do you think this is a spot where she's going to return to the winner's circle?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a huge Caravel fan. I mean, when our friend Jake Ballas of Black Type Thoroughbreds attempted to purchase her, and he lost out to Bobby Flay, and I even was a fan, and I encouraged Bobby. I thought she was going to be extremely, extremely good. I thought I was on the show on that summer saying she was going to win the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. She didn't win it that year. She won it the next year. I wasn't involved. And
JK off. Obviously, JK off was the angle.
JK off, exactly. And then I'm obviously going to root for the Maroon. Shout out to Qatar Racing. And I love her. And I there's not a human in this world, I'm convinced of it, that has singled her more than I have in multi-race bets. I love her. I singled her. I trust her as well. Going shorter, going 5.5. I trust her immensely. I got to say, I don't trust her in the spot. It's just a little bit more that she's going to have to deal with, and she's going to have a little bit better running at her late. I'm not crazy about the audible. I had no conversation with the team, but I feel like, I don't know if Brad was just like, hey, look, let's just stay here, but she's drawn outside. So she's at least going to be 2 or 3 wide, I would think. She, nothing better. Is fast. I can't see her getting over and clearing. If she does clear going 6 against these horses, she probably went too fast. So she's really going to go a true 6 with losing some ground too. I'm going to do it a little sexier than I'm going to say I'm doing it here. I'm going to be a little bit more efficient, but I'm essentially going to single Big Invasion. I'm going to use some savers. I'm going to play defensively with horses like Casa Creed. I'm going to play defensively with Caravel and Nothing Better in case they get loose. I'm going to play defensively with Chad's horse, Dr. Zemph, who I know that he liked prior in that race at Keeneland. But I'm going to basically build everything very aggressively through Big Invasion. When Big Invasion was a 3-year-old, I thought that there was a chance that Big Invasion was actually better than Golden Pal. I thought he was the best turf sprinter as a 3-year-old last year. I was very excited to see him running the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. That didn't work out. And then let's remember what's happened to him in his 2 starts this year. He goes the flat 5 at Gulfstream. And anyone who's ever played Gulfstream knows that closers need every possible thing to go their way going a flat 5. He wins going the flat 5 at Gulfstream, which is basically impossible, off of a layoff. First start off of a layoff, first start as a 4-year-old. Then he comes back in the race at Churchill Downs, and he just gets absolutely buried. I have no idea what Joel was doing, but what I've learned about Joel is Joel not paying attention can lead to some frustrating moments, and we all kind of as horse players know that. But Joel paying attention, there's no one better in the country. And I think you're going to get a Joel paying attention ride based on the ride last time. You're going to get pace to close into. He likes it at Belmont Park. His style fits Belmont Park, and he's going to get 6 furlongs to work with. I love Big Invasion on Saturday. He's kind of my build my entire day around type of horse.
I was hoping I could be clever making the exact Big Invasion case that you just made. And JK, I have to say, as you discussed Joel's ride on Big Invasion at Churchill from May 6th, you may just have a future in politics the way you described that one. It was funny enough. I saw Dean Reeves the next 2 days later. I saw Dean Reeves in Saratoga. He was in town for a New York bred thing, and I saw him outside of Salivo, and he wasn't very happy either. I think Big Invasion is as good as we think he is. I really like him. I really like Casa Creed. I'm going to play it that way and hope for the best. I will probably throw in some sort of saver with Caravel on the thought, she's so good, best of speed. I'll be, even if it messes, even if I'm upside down in any picks, I'll be clapping her back as well. Such a cool.
Don't leave out the Duke. He's doing well.
And the Duke has to be on every ticket because we'll never live it down. Any special insight on him, Steve? I mean, it's an ambitious spot, but I mean, obviously on his best day, he's not too far behind these.
No, I mean, we almost caught Golden Pal at Saratoga when a race came apart a little bit at the end. I mean, he's a textbook deep closer. He's pace dependent, certainly running against this level of horses. All I can tell you is he should be at his best third off the layoff. First two paceless races in the comeback just weren't his, but I think there will be speed.
Got to be all over in terms of the verticals, and I'm not going to split any hairs. I'll be covering the on top scenario as well. Race number 10 is the Met Mile, grade 1 action, of course, going, 1 mile. We've got this field of 9, not exactly the field. This is one of those races you can always sort of dream cast a blue sky to have a few other participants. It's interesting the way it comes up here. Obviously, Cody's Wish going to be a heavy favorite once again. JK, is he a heavy favorite you can, along with a horse like Big Invasion for you, key your day around, or do you need to get a little spready in here?
I mean, he's just so darn good. I mean, based on the fact that I'm going to have some tickets with just Big Invasion on them. I can't let some other interesting horses in this race cost me the Big Invasion opinion if it goes right. So yes, I'm going to press up the heck out of Cody's Wish. He'll be a kind of a powerful A for me. He might even be that press A where you kind of run another sequence with him just singled. But Dr. Scheibel, I think speed is dangerous in these races. These are the types of horses. The type of horse that beats Cody's Wish is the type of horse that Cody's Wish doesn't catch. Not a horse that's going to run with Cody's Wish, a closer. I don't necessarily see that. Dr. Scheibel is one that I want. Charge It, is another one who's shown an immense amount of talent. And just hasn't really run that fast, but I could see him kind of jumping up, getting back to Belmont. Repo Rocks, the race he ran 4 back was outstanding. Then he kind of went weird for a couple of races. Then he kind of got fast again. I can't let that horse wire me. I made a joke after the toboggan that if he runs that race again, all the rest of the horses are running for second in the Met Mile. Can't let him beat me. And then Zandon, just another horse that I've always thought would appreciate the cutback. And I understand that and I'm not saying that what Zandon has done in his last couple of starts are why I think he can win this race. With Zandon, I think he can win because of the talent he showed at 3. And this could be one of those moments at 4 where he kind of puts it all together. And if he could put it all together, I think he could take a big step forward and run a number that can win versus this group. But like I said, those will all be kind of defensive moves. I think Cody's Wish is going to be hard to beat. It's a tough draw for him to the inside, but they should run away from him a little bit, and he should be able to kind of work out his own trip.
I agree. And I think Zandon is, for me, the interesting one. This is a horse for a long time we've been talking about as one who could thrive around the 1-turn mile configuration. And for me, the Cigar Mile in the slop in a race that wasn't run to suit, I'm just not too worried about. And I feel like that Westchester has the look of a prep. I'm going to make my, token top pick Zandon. I'll be playing plenty of Zandon and plenty of Cody's Wish. And of course, on the heart, it's all about Cody's Wish in this spot. Steve, how about you? How are you going to approach this year's Met Mile?
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not going to take a big position against Cody's Wish. But I do think there are 2 other horses that can win the race. Charge It has immense talent. And the race that he ran at Belmont Park a year ago, winning the Dwyer, was a historically fast race. Got a buyer of, I think, 123. He's got the talent. Maybe this is where he puts it together. The other horse who I like a lot, and don't sell him short because of his connections in his past, is Repo Rocks. A couple of those races where Jonathon said he got weird and he got slow, he was being ridden by a guy who shouldn't be riding stakes horses. I mean, he got two of the worst rides, I've seen this entire year. And last time when they just let him roll with a new rider, Ruben Silvera is back on him today. And he's been winning races at Belmont. He knows what he's doing. I think he absolutely has the ability. I mean, the way that, he just dusted Zandon last time and was drawing away from him at the end, ran fast, nice outside draw. I think he can just sit off Dr. Scheibel, who isn't going to win a Grade 1 race at the first time going beyond 6 furlongs. He's going to stop at some point, and I think Repo Rocks will be just there. Cody's Wish is good enough to come and get him, but to me, those are my two A's, Cody and Repo Rocks.
I like the sound of it. Cody and Repo Rocks with a shout out and a beeline opinion as well on Charge It. And I think that's an absolutely fair point about that ridiculously fast run Charge It has over this course and distance. Definitely one to take more of a look at. We've had some really good questions along the way. I'm going to come back and we'll do some of them at the end. We're going to keep rolling through, but pop your questions up there in the chat if you're watching us live on YouTube. Obviously, this will be available as well via the regular places you get the podcast. Subscribe to In the Money Media wherever you get your pods, and we'll make sure to keep getting you great content. We'll also give you a little plug for our In the Money Plus service, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. You get little digests of all the picks from the free shows, as well as extra content, which we're going to be having plenty of for this Belmont Stakes Festival. Next up, race number 11, the Grade 1 Manhattan. We're going 1.25 miles, and we've got a field of 10 going postward in here. Steve, we'll keep this with you for this interesting clash between what seems like, at first blush anyway, the Appleby runners versus these newly discovered Up to the Mark for Todd Pletcher. Who do you like in this one?
I hate to be a chalk-eating weasel, but I was super impressed with Up to the Mark's win at Churchill. I mean, he just exploded. It was a wow race. It was fast. It got a big number. And, if I were allowed to be playing the pick X's tomorrow, he would be a single A, and I would use the €2 as B's. I just don't think anyone else in the race is good enough. I mean, yeah, if a Rock Emperor pulled something out of history and ran his very best race, I mean, maybe I'd use him as a C, just as insanity insurance. But I think Up to the Mark is the best American grass horse that we've seen in a while.
It was a heck of a run last time, and definitely one that the Appleby runners would have to improve on what we saw recently to compete with. But I do think there are stories you can tell about both of them. Warren Point maybe just moving a little bit too early last time, and Ottoman Fleet having come out in May. We've seen these Appleby runners get better as these years go on, as the year goes on. I'm still kind of torn on this one. I mean, I think those are the three. I'm having trouble separating them in any intelligent way. JK, how about you? Do you have a strong preference in the Manhattan?
Yeah, look, I agree. I think Up to the Mark is definitely, one that you have to trust. The figure was fast. It was impressive. It's Todd in New York, which I get Charlie Appleby's success, but it's Todd in New York. And I don't know, who else do you really need other than Todd in New York, right? Chad in New York. So I think that deserves some credit, right? Like, you have to think about that. I will say this. As far as the two Charlie Appleby runners, we'll start with the 3 Warren Point. I remember the beginning of that race. He broke extremely slow and was basically over. Then kind of middle moved into the race where he probably shouldn't have early, and then still kind of stayed on a little bit. Now, that race was at 11 furlongs. So a little bit more like a long distance type of horse. It feels like the Charlie felt that horse was. And then Ottoman Fleet, this horse ran at 9 furlongs last time. So, and it was obviously very impressive, but the horse had a perfect trip. And he still didn't necessarily run as fast as Up to the Mark. I think people are going to go a little bit crazy over these two horses. And look, I'm not going to toss them. I think they can definitely win. But I think Steve's onto something. Although he kind of called himself a chalk-eating weasel by kind of leaning on Up to the Mark. Man, I think that it is significantly more gutsy to single up to the mark and toss the 2 Charlie Applebys than it is to use the 2 Charlie Applebys and toss the Todd. I think that the singling of the Todd is a more gutsy move. And I actually think that you pick up a ton of equity if you can make that your decision to lean on Todd. Because people in these turf races, especially, there's no Chads in here. They're gonna just act like these 2 Charlie Appleby horses can't lose. And the paper doesn't suggest that that's the case. And so I'm only going to use those 3 horses in any type of iteration, but I'm going to lean heavily on Todd's horse up to the mark because he ran fast last time, and it's Todd in New York.
Chad does have these outsiders here, JK, Rock Emperor and Highest Honors, but I presume you don't have much interest.
Look, I mean, I love Chad, but like I said, there's no bricks and mortars in here, right? Sorry, Saul.
I think JK makes an important point about Warren Point. If he's going to be 2 or 3 times the price of Ottoman Fleet, I think the public will be making a mistake. I mean, yeah, Ottoman Fleet's a little more accomplished at the group level, but as he said, I mean, if you watch their 2 races, Warren Point after the poor start just made a ridiculous premature middle move. So no shock he came up wanting at the end. Whereas Ottoman Fleet, I'm not sure he was beating, the best grass horses in New York, and the race couldn't have fallen into his lap more easily. So if they're going to give you 6-1 on Warren Point and 2-1 on Ottoman Fleet, I think you're supposed to take Warren Point.
I agree. I think, the other question here is just about the distance. I think Warren Point, very, very well suited to this 1.25 miles. Ottoman Fleet coming off the perfect trip. I'm not going to toss him, but I'm just not as sure. His best form is going shorter with good trips. What about up to the mark in the distance? You guys don't have any concern that he might get a little bit leg weary in those last furlongs? I'm not against him exactly, but that would be my hesitation to taking him at a short price. Is there something specifically, Steve, that you're seeing in up to the mark tape or PPs that make you confident about the extra ground?
Well, if you just watch his last race, I mean, if that race had been a furlong longer, he just would have won by twice as much.
Right.
I mean, this is not a speed horse who was slowing down. This was just a dominant horse having his way with lesser rivals.
Yeah, he put it to bed at the strides.
I mean, you're outside of the fact that it's Charlie Appleby and it's Godolphin and it's See the Stars, like, you kind of have a similar question about Ottoman Fleet, right? I mean, yes, the horse won 10 furlongs on soft, so you figure yes, but it's a different game here. Maybe it was the soft ground that actually is why it moved that horse up. What about 10 furlongs on firm ground against horses that want to hear their feet rattle? I think that, you're answering the question. The one horse that answers that question is Warren Point. That the distance isn't going to be a problem, but I don't know. When it comes to grass racing from 9 furlongs to 10, I don't think there's a difference unless there is a unique pace scenario that then can call on to stamina or not stamina.
And I think this one, pace-wise, it doesn't necessarily look on paper like it's going to be a particularly testing 10. It'll be interesting to see how that one turns out for sure. The Appleby runners in the U.S., they've not been doing their typical thing, but that could change in a hurry. I wonder, though, if he's had enough of a lack of success this year that we're not going to see those horses buried at the windows the way we saw some of them last year. It'll be interesting to see how they bet this one.
If as long as they make silver tubes with wings and Aidan O'Brien and Charlie Appleby and Stout, they come over here, we can't control ourselves. We're going to bet them on the grass.
Let's talk about the big one, guys. The race that gives the day its name. It's the Grade 1 Belmont Stakes for these 3-year-olds. We're going 1.5 miles on the dirt. It's an interesting 9-runner field. JK, who are you picking to win?
Oh, my God. I promise you, I have no idea. So I'm going to say it. I'll say it when I'm done. But I don't know. A lot of times in these situations when it comes to the Belmont Stakes, especially the way that the kind of Preakness gets skipped if you're not, it gets skipped by a lot of horses. They want that extra time if they didn't win the Derby. Sometimes I like to just take a deep breath and say to myself, who did you like in the Derby? And did that horse do anything to make you not like them now? Because if you liked them then, you should like them now. So I start there. And so for me, it was Tapit Trice. But then there's a situation where with the Forte and the Mage thing, where like I didn't like how slow the race was, but I still was gonna play Forte if he ran, just because I thought he was a classy horse. And then when Mage came back and ran as well as he did in the Derby, then I thought to myself, okay, if Forte runs in the Belmont, I don't have to worry about that slow number. He is that classy horse that I thought he was. So there's those two horses that I think are extremely live. And then there's Hit Show, who I hated the fact that he drew the rail, but I thought he ran extremely well despite that. And at certain points of the race, I thought maybe he was a winner. So I'm between those three horses as my top pick. I'm going to pick Tapit Trice, but it's not one of those I'm singling everything I have into that horse. I'm going to use a lot. I mean, I have to have Angel of Empire, who I thought was live in the Derby. And I have to have National Treasure, who speed is so dangerous in these races. And you know what Bob's going to do. Go to the front, go as fast as you can, get comfortable on the front end. And if they let National Treasure get comfortable, he could do what he did in the Preakness. I think this is a wide open race, but Tapit Trice will be my official top choice. These Tapits love this extra distance. I thought he ran extremely well, considering how, the luck of the Derby, and Todd obviously knows how to win this race. I like Tapit Trice.
My line about Tapit Trice all along has been, if you just looked at the PP cut and took the name away, the horse just, he looks like a Belmont winner. But knowing this horse and watching all his tape, even though, if he does succeed, if he does really step up, it's probably in a not terribly giant field around Belmont. I still have my doubts the price he's going to be. Oh, Steve,
I will say one thing real quick before we go to Steve. Sorry, just real fast. I just want to remind people, when it comes to Todd Pletcher, when you look at the past performance, and you can say this about Forte as well, Todd understands more than anyone else in this race, you have to be forward. Steve, I know you'll remember, he put Dunkirk, who was a dead closer, on the lead. He understands that being forward matters a lot. He will tell his riders to take his horses out of their comfort zone in this race and try to put them more forward. I think Tapit Trice will be a lot closer than he's been in his previous races.
I mean, I get it. And we've seen this movie before. Steve, what do you think we're going to see when they cross the finish line at Belmont on Saturday around 7:05?
I think we're going to see one of the three favorites in the winner's circle. I wish I had an interesting idea in this race. I like to have interesting ideas in the Belmont. I just don't see one. I think Fort Tapit Trice and Angel of Empire tower over the field. I gave Hit Show a try in the Derby. I didn't love the way he ran. I have trouble seeing him getting the 1.5 miles. Red Route won. He's just a few lengths behind these horses, and to me, the rest have no chance at all. I think that, JK's right, that Tapit Trice is going to be closer because Todd understands the race. The horse I'm very much against is National Treasure. When people say, well, he can do what he did in the Preakness, what does that mean? Like run slow with a perfect trip and hold off Blazing Sevens, who's not very good. So, to me, he's the horse to play against. I still don't have an interesting horse at a price.
First of all, Steve, massive props to you for pronouncing Fort correctly without the diacritical that isn't there, that I can't resist saying every time I say it. But I guess I'm not alone in that. Are you just being stubborn with that, or are you're just that big of a fan of the English language that you're not going to let this this trend that everybody's picked up sway you in this direction?
It's the correct pronunciation. I don't apologize for pronouncing his name correctly. May the Force be with you. Would you like a Windsor Torquay? I mean, just because there's an E at the end doesn't mean you pronounce it.
It's fantastic. And my Star Wars loving child was very excited by that reference as well. The horse that you guys haven't mentioned that I want to talk about is the number 3 Archangelo. I give this horse some count. Not only is this blood that I really like going the 1.5 miles, but I just thought that race the last time was a big improvement. And I love the fact, this is an angle we often talk about in turf racing, the closing into slow fractions. But for a horse just making the 4th start of the lifetime with this kind of blood in a pace that could heat up, you guys obviously do think I'm nuts by putting this one forward. And the 8-1 of the morning line isn't as exciting as the 12 and 14-1 that have been around internationally. But is it really so crazy to think this horse could step up if this 3-year-old group, if some of these others find wanting in terms of the distance and or class? You think that's a crazy notion, Steve?
I'd sort of prefer to see him in the Woody Stevens. I mean, I think he's a talented horse. I don't know that, out nodding Bishop's Bay, who's, pure speed and doesn't want more than a mile, gets you in the winner's circle going 1.5 miles. But, for a 4th career start, it's a more than respectable effort.
Do you give that one any shot, Jonathan?
No, not really. I mean, I think, I'm going to piggyback on Steve's point in whether you like National Treasure or not. Let's just throw him into the conversation. I think there's 4 horses in here that are better than Archangelo, right? I think Tapit Trice is better. Arguably National Treasure. Fort.
Yeah, no, Jonathan, you're going to be on national TV. You can buck the trend and say this name correctly.
No. There's no way I'm going to let Andy Serling have that victory because he's been calling it Fort, but then Mike Rapoli said it's Forte, and he owns the horse. So I'm not giving. I can't give that victory to Andy. But my point is that
it's Thin White Dookie.
That's very different. That sounds like that's a medical condition. That's
amazing. That's amazing. So
Andy probably just got it from Steve. I'm just going to point that out.
He probably stole it. The 2 Tapit Trice, the 4 National Treasure, the 6 horse, and the 8 Angel of Empire, I think are all better than Archangelo. So all 4 of them have to not show up for him to win. And I think to Steve's point too about Bishop's Bay is I got to be honest with you. I know that Brad really liked Bishop's Bay that day. And I was very frustrated with Florent's ride that day because I thought he was like overly patient, doing that kind of cute wait, hurry up and ask your horse. And I was talking to John Panagot, Florent's agent, and I was like, I don't know, man. I think Flo might have should have opened up. And he said, well, the instructions are that horse will pull up when he makes the lead. He stops himself. So Flo was waiting to the last possible minute. So that even makes me less excited about that Archangelo beat him because I think he just beat him because he kind of pulled himself up a little bit. Look, that's a lot of speculation. It's just but I don't like Archangelo that much anyways. So I'll take any excuse I can get.
I've bet him at the UK prices. I bet Hit Show as well. Hit Show for me, I just thought ran really well, given the post, given attending the pace. I just think he's deserving another chance. Just another one. This is one of the races where I'll really let blood, influence my opinion. And that's, sort of where I am with the 6 runner. Not 100% sure. I wasn't 100% sure if he wanted to go 1.25 miles, let alone 1.5 miles. I don't love the plan C aspect for a horse that's going to be the favorite. And I don't know. I mean, Tapit Trice, I'm certainly going to have some Fort and some Tapit Trice on tickets here, but I think the interesting ones for me at the prices are going to be the 3 and the 7. We'll see how it plays out. And I also wouldn't be shocked if Angel of Empire kicks sand in my face, but I felt like he went there to win the race and just wasn't quite good enough. And I don't know that the blinkers on is going to be the difference for a horse. So again, I just maybe I'm overrating the blood, but I just don't know how far some of these horses want to go. It's going to be super fun though to see it.
And I will say this too, and this is a thing that, I'll say it again. I've always said it. Steve's book, Exotic Betting, changed it's the most important horse racing book I ever read. And it didn't help me pick winners. There's 100 other books that taught me to do that a little bit better, but it taught me that this is a betting game. So you have to look at it as a wager, as a bet, and what opportunities it provides. And this is one of those situations where there's sometimes where American Pharaoh or Justify or Tonalist or a horse that you love is running on the Belmont, and you can single and have this strong opinion and try to get alive to that horse. And that's the way that the ticket structure can kind of be built. This is a situation where I don't have that strong opinion in this year's Belmont. I'm going to try to get alive to 5 horses, and I'm going to try to do that with horses like Cody's Wish and Big Invasion, getting me through the meat of the sequence. And you can score out just the same. I can promise you, when you hand your ticket to the teller, they're not going to ask you who you loved in the Belmont, and you tell them Tap It Trice and Angel of Empire won. They're still going to cash your ticket.
How do you balance that, Steve, as somebody who's so known for betting strategy, but also somebody who gives opinions in a strong manner? Is it hard for you to sort of square that circle in your role as a public horse player between the way to bet and also being somebody who gives out, quote unquote picks?
No, I don't find it problematic. I mean, I play the same way, whether it's Belmont Day or a Wednesday. And, ideally you get alive to the last leg of one of these things. I mean, you've got the 3 A's who are supposed to win, and you got everybody else as a seed, just in case something stupid happens. If you've been able to get home, maybe a couple of singles and a horse you have a big opinion about earlier. I mean, if you're super smart 5 times in a row, don't be stubborn and not use a horse as a C in the last leg. But, my A's are going to be the horses I really like.
That's the way I was taught to do it, Steve, by you, and the way we do it today. We get an occasional skirmishes with the EV police about, why would you ever include a favorite that you don't think is going to be value in a bet like the Pick Six? And for me, it's just because the Pick Six is its own ecosystem. And just because a horse is an underlay in the win pool doesn't mean that the right combination of that horse in a bet like the Pick Six can't provide excellent value. Is that
just win,
Yeah.
just get there.
We have some nice comments here. We're going to give some shout outs to Joseph, who's made some nice comments here. Richard, we've got some people saying that they miss you giving picks regularly. We have people saying, JK, congrats to you on your recent nuptials. Here's a specific horse question about Slow Down Andy. Does anybody give Slow Down Andy a shot?
Yeah, sure. I mean, he ran well against Cody's Wish in the Breeders' Cup, but it's a tough race off a long break, right?
I mean, how do you make up the gap between him and Cody's Wish? Do you know something? He's supposed to improve 5 lengths tomorrow. I guess he had some trouble. I guess he had some trouble, but he had some trouble on a race that he was in the middle of a season getting fully primed up for. So you got to think he's not going to be as sharp here today as he was that day. And so to me, the trouble and the layoff cancel each other out. Right. Just like a situation where a horse is wide, but the pace is fast. So yes, you lost a lot of ground, but you got to set up. They cancel each other out. So to me, this is a situation where his layoff and his trouble cancels him out. I mean, I've seen crazier things happen, but I don't love the horse.
Shout out to Michael and Daniel and Jackson, who I got to meet at the Pick Your Prize contest, flew all the way from the West Coast and just completing his school year. He's done a great job for us over at InTheMoneyPodcast.com. He has a question about the Woody Stevens. Anybody have any thoughts, positive or negative, on victory formation in this race? Jonathan, you look like you have an opinion.
Yeah, this is one of those situations when you see it and you see the name, you're like, oh, that's the horse that in March I said needs to cut back. But yes, he needs to cut back. But I don't think that the answer was cutting back in the Grade 1 Woody Stevens against Drew's Gold, Fort Bragg, General Jim, and Arabian Lion. Yes, I think this is exactly what this horse needs to do, but I'm not sure he's quite fast enough to do what other horses are also doing, which is cutting back, that are faster than him, if that makes sense.
Sounds about right to me. Steve, any additional thoughts on victory formation in there?
Yeah, I kept coming back to him, and because I spent a lot of time on this race, I think it's the most difficult race on the card. And there is something appealing about him. I mean, to run the race that he did in the storied Bathhouse Row last time out, I thought that was a very good effort. It was a square pace. He'd been off a couple of months, and to me, when you write your chapter about turnback horses, this is what they look like. So if Arabian Lion doesn't just trounce the field, and if Drew's Gold can't wire it, I think he might have a shot to at least hit the board.
All right, interesting. A little bit of encouragement there. Those turnbacks definitely that can be the kind of horse that on certain combinations you want to leave horses open. Maybe that's a horse to leave open in your widest of spreads. We talked about this a little bit before, but Trish, who's a loyal listener and viewer, wants to know if there's any worry about any of this racing getting postponed with the weather in NYC. From what I've seen, if anything, tomorrow's in, 20% jeopardy, maybe a little bit more, just with all the other cancellations happening. But I really don't think, from what I've seen, if the reports that I've seen are correct, we're going to have any problem with Friday and Saturday. And I mean, just looking out the window now, it looks better than it did an hour ago. So I'm hoping we're going to be good to go for these big days tomorrow. What do you think, Jonathan?
Pete, you and I, we always retweet Marshall Sterling, grade 1 handicapping. He is by trade. I don't know if his exact title is a meteorologist, but it's what he studies his weather. And in fact, the first time he actually came and we had a beer in Austin 8 years ago. And I was like, well, what do you do? And he told me that he tracks the winds for forest fires.
So that's what he does. This is his bailiwick.
And so he basically said that the wind is going to change. It should improve the scenario overnight. I don't have the best insight, but Naira is very optimistic that everything's gonna be fine tomorrow.
All right, that's good. That's very good to hear. Yes, some tracks are very quickly pulling the ripcord, but obviously it's a little bit different for New York on such a big day. Thomas has the ticket, your ticket construction DVD, Steve, and says he still watches it from time to time. Is that still in print? Can we get that somewhere?
I think I have a box in my basement. If you can.
We might have to put on some kind of sale. All profits going to you / whatever charity you choose. I don't think I ever saw the DVD. I think I need to check that out. That's pretty funny. Let's see. Joseph chiming in here. Some nice thank yous. Lots of good stuff. Reagan Swinbank, who I know you're pals with, JK, wants to know if we can see an upset in the Ogden Phipps. What's he getting at?
Oh yeah, he's rooting for Pastor Champagne. Sure. Look, like I've told them, and I'll say it again. If she showed us who she was when she lost by a nose to Malathat in the Ashland, and then she kind of stopped showing us who she was. And I think last time she kind of showed back up and showed she's a good horse. She's going to have to get better. She'll have to improve, and she's going to need some things that kind of go her way. But I wouldn't be shocked if she won.
Here's a race that I didn't prep you guys for. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the Brooklyn yet, but we got a question about if we're going to see the real version of Lone Rock turn up on Saturday. That's an interesting race, the Brooklyn. It's salty. I don't know. It's hard with Lone Rock, right? He's 8 years old. He just threw in a not great race on the heels of kind of a by his own high standards meh race. I don't think I'd want to plan my day around it. Do either of you guys have strong thoughts on Lone Rock in Brooklyn?
I love Lone Rock. When I got second in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge at Del Mar, there was an all-in move on Lone Rock. I'm a huge fan. And I love his owners as well. I thought on April 2nd in the Temperance Hill that he was going to run well and win. Maggie had talked about how he looked a little bit healthier than he did before he went to the layoff, and he came back and he just kind of let me down a little bit. And then she thought at Churchill that he looked even better, and that he just really looked like I worry that he might be done.
Did you look at the Brooklyn at all, Steve? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did. I have the same fear that This horse ran like 11 races in a row that were pretty similar. And I didn't see anything happen in the Churchill race. And, it just had that look of a horse who might be done. It'd be great if he came back to his best form, but absent an excuse, I'm not expecting that to happen.
We have some people don't even know what's going on with the weather. Chris, another member of the In the Money family, is asking about the smoke situation. Yeah, it's these wildfires in Montreal, and we've seen it for a few days now, but it was more like at dusk. The sky was a little orange, and then last night, when I went to walk around the block to try to tell Marshall Graham that his parking space was legal, and I came back feeling like I'd smoked 2 packs of cigarettes. It was like a crazy, it was almost like there was a fire down the block. You couldn't believe that this was something that was happening in Quebec. And then this morning it was a little bit better, got worse throughout the day, but again, apparently getting better now. And then we are hoping that it's going to blow over and not cause us any hassle. And we actually have a report.
I'll be ready.
Inhaler, that's good. Sil, who's another person we've had the pleasure of hanging out with at Saratoga, another longtime listener, says the weather's already better in Montreal. No smoke up there. So I think we're going to be okay. That's how we're going to put it. All right. Now, this is just silly because there's somebody, I guess, Jack may need to get his vision checked because he thinks Andy Beyer is on the panel tonight. But his question is interesting enough that for a historian of the game like Steve Crist, I will ask who you would like at 10 furlongs, Cigar versus Easy Goer.
Well, Easy Goer. But, I'm going to prefer Easy Goer to anyone because he's my favorite horse. That's not necessarily a reasoned or thoughtful analysis.
At 10, that feels about right. It's hard to go against him if we can have the sweeping turns of New York in the mix. Here we go. We have some folks in the comments correcting things as well. Great stuff. Really enjoyed this. Thanks to everybody who commented. Thanks so much to producer AJ, Steve, JK. It's always just such a blast. I can't believe I get to call this work hanging out with you guys. Fox, big Fox to watch the Belmont on Saturday. You can also check out, we have a little pretty link. Anytime you want to know, people ask me, sometimes the channel changes. If you want to know when America's Day at the Races is on, just go to inthemoneypodcast.com/TV. You can catch up with JK and Andy Serling and Maggie Wolfendale and Acacia and the rest of the fantastic team over there. And that's the best way to follow along. There's a lot of great 2-day wagers as well. Some actually start Thursday. We created a pretty link for a link to that as well. If you go to inthemoneypodcast.com/2-day bets, that's TWODAY bets. You can look at all of those. Maybe JK, you and I will do something at some other point, looking specifically at some of those because there's all kinds of different terms. You have some with higher minimums, lower takeouts. Very interesting. Definitely worth for a serious horse player to dive in and take a look at some of that stuff. The 2-day pick 6 in particular, pretty darn interesting. I think that might be a 20 cent, but with a 15% takeout. And because it's a 2-day bet, might keep some of that computer money for making that 20 cent minimum too efficient. So that's worth taking a look at. 2 races Friday and 4 on Saturday. I'll give you guys each a chance to give us a closing thought before I fully throw this away. Steve, we'll start with you. Any closing thoughts on this Belmont Day card or this Belmont Stakes Racing Festival?
Well, not to be a Pollyanna, but this is some card of racing. Outside of the Breeders' Cup, I think this is clearly the second best day of racing all year. Other than the Breeders' Cup, I can't remember a card with 6 consecutive Grade 1 races, unless it's another year. And a lot of great dirt racing, which isn't too popular these days, but dirt racing is what racing and breeding is all about. I can't wait to see some of these races. A lot of good stuff.
Great stuff. We got to bring you on to have an industry issues talk sometime soon, Steve. I almost went there making some quip about, just 4 horses from the Derby running back in the 5 weeks, but that's a conversation for another time. JK, how about you? Any closing thoughts for us today?
Yeah, look, I agree. Outstanding racing. FS1, there's a show. FS1 and Fox will be congruent. So if you want the kind of normal show that you get every day with us at Saratoga, that's going to be on FS1, and then there's going to be another broadcast on Fox, kind of like a Manning cast, as it were. I'm going to be on both, so make sure you tune in to both. And don't forget about the Belmont Stakes Challenge. $5,000 buy-in. You got to sign up Thursday by 5:00 though. It's a 2-day contest. Should be pretty good. And yeah, it's always a fun weekend of racing.
Going to be great stuff. Looking forward to it. Steve, thank you so much. JK, thank you so much. AJ, well, thank you again. Most of all, though, want to thank all of you, the listeners, the viewers, for making these shows so much fun to do. Special shout out for our founding partners too. Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, the great work they do with the Second Chances program. Investigate more about that. trfinc.org/players. And of course, 10 Strike Racing. It was a great day today hanging out with Marshall out at the Brooklyn Cyclones Stadium, trying to be able to find a few pockets of air to breathe, which we were able to do. Nice walk-off win in the bottom of the ninth for the Cyclones. Good, fun stuff. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your Belmont Stakes Day photos.